So this is part 2 of the mimer that we're learning on Purim, the mimer of Balayla. So I'm going to briefly summarize what we discussed last class. If you weren't here last class, you can always go back and listen to it. You can find it online. But the ideas that we're going to discuss today sort of stand on their own. They're just enriched by what we learned last class. So, and we're going to go pretty deep and sort of into some nuanced levels today. So hopefully we'll understand it with Hashem's help. So last week we started off with the pasuk in the Megillah, Balayla hu nadada shnas hamelech, that on that night the king's sleep was disturbed. And we asked a number of questions that basically indicated to us that this language of Balayla ahu is very significant. On that night, that language is significant and means more than just the surface level. And the Rebbe quoted the Friedrich Rebbe that quotes other places that originally goes to the Yalkut Shemaini, which basically explains that when it says on that night the king woke up, it's sort of the turning point in the Megillah, because the king that it's referring to is Hashem. That when the Jewish Hashem's awareness and consciousness and involvement with creation is responsive and reflective of how we are, our state. So when the Jewish people are in a state of sleep, then Hashem also goes to sleep. It says, Hine le'yanum v'lo yishan, Hashem never sleeps or slumbers, but it says that that's when we are in an awakened state. But when we go to sleep, when we're not living with an awareness of godliness, when we're sort of in a state of darkness ourselves, how we've explained sleep was that your conscious self is not really present. Your subconscious self is there, but your conscious mind is not really present. You don't have the sense of awareness of what's going on. So we fell asleep, and Hashem reflectively goes to sleep, meaning that he's not as consciously invested in the creation. And that's why we see the whole story of the Purim story is sort of like all these coincidences happening on their sort of seemingly on their own without obvious involvement of God. Hashem's name is not said in the Megillah because he's asleep. He's not present. He's not fully there. And that is because he's actually sleeping. But what happens on that night, which is we gave context last time, we said it was the night of Esther's first party before her second party. And when Haman was very excited, he built his gallows that night. Because he thought he was in the queen's favor. He was invited to the second party. He's all excited, and he's building his gallows. And the king is thinking about what happened that day, and he's disturbed by it, and he can't sleep, and he wakes up. And it ends up happening that's when he reads the Chronicles about the story of Mordechai, and that's when everything shifts where he rewards Mordechai. But basically, so the king wakes up. When we say the king wakes up, we're referring to Hashem. And we spoke about why is it so significant that Hashem wakes up? It's because when we say Laila Hahu, we're talking about a very, very, very dark night. Laila versus Yom is already an indication of darkness, right? Light is day and darkness is night. It's very simple for us. It's a very simple association for us. That light, revelation, openness, that's daytime. And darkness is nighttime is a time of darkness, of concealment. And then we also spoke about the word hu. That the word hu, as opposed to the word zeh, is a state of concealment versus a state of revelation. When we say the word zeh, it means that we could point to something and say, it's in front of me. This thing that's right in front of me, it's revealed, it's open, it's obvious. As opposed to hu, which is that thing. It's not right in front of me. I don't really see it. And we contrasted it with when we said, so this over here says, Balayla hahu. We contrasted it by Yetzias Mitzrayim or by the Seder, when we're saying the Mana Nishnana, we say, Balayla hazeh, on this night. Because even though during the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the night before when the Jews were taken out of Egypt, the day before the Jews were taken out of Egypt, they knew redemption was coming. They're still in Galus. They're still in darkness, they're still in Lila, but they know redemption is coming, so there's this element of revelation. That's why it's Lila ha-zeh. And when you're in a state of Lila hazeh, when you're in a state of darkness, but you know redemption is coming, you recognize that you're in darkness. And what is your internal state is that you're yearning for the light. You desire to leave that state of darkness and go into the state of light. During the Purim story over here, we're talking about Balayla hahu, not Balayla hazeh. It's an extra dark darkness. And we spoke about this concept of the Anochi haster aster, the double language of concealment. And the Baal Shem Tov explains that the darkness is so dark that you don't even realize that it's darkness. The concealment is so strong that you don't even realize you're in a state of concealment. You think that you're in a positive space. You think you're in a state of revelation. That's how dark the concealment is. It's so concealed that it's concealed to you. It's like absolute concealment. And that's why it's such a big miracle that Hashem wakes up. And in turn, obviously, wakes us up and saves us. Because waking up from such a deep, deep darkness is not such a simple thing. Getting out of this double darkness state is a big deal. So where we're going to start today, that's sort of like a brief overview of what we said last time. We're going to start today with Ice Hay. If you want, we'll read a little bit inside. Maybe we could follow along a little bit inside. And we're going to start understanding, toward the end of last class, we started discussing how there's an advantage to darkness over light. And that's what we're going to start expanding on now. How the darkness is not, that the darkness has its purpose. And typically when we speak about the purpose of darkness, we speak about the light that's going to come after the darkness, right? The Yisrin ha'ar ha'bam and ha'chayshach, the advantage of light that comes after darkness. In this case, we're actually going to talk about the advantage of darkness itself. Not the light that comes after it, but what is it? Why are we in a state of darkness? And in order to understand that, we're going to go back to the words Laila, Yaim, and Hu, and Zeh, right? And we said we have 4 different configurations. We can have Yaim Hazeh and Yaim Hahu. Yaim Hazeh is revealed day, and Yaim Hahu is concealed day. Laila Hazeh is revealed night. Laila Hahu is concealed night. So we have 4 different levels that we're going to be dealing with over here. So we said that the way that they are in their source above, that is when they are referred to as Hu. So as they are in their source, in their spiritual, godly source, revelation and concealment are referred to as Hu. So Yaim Hahu is the source of the idea of Yaim. And Laila Hahu is the source of the idea of Laila. I know this is a little confusing. I almost need a whiteboard over here so that we can follow along, but hopefully. It's just stop me if it starts to get confusing, okay? So that's it as it exists in its source. And then as it comes down into revelation, into creation, it becomes Yaim Hazeh, this day, the revealed day, because in our world, that's where things become revealed. And Laila Hazeh, revealed night. And then, sometimes we experience the day and night as they are in their source. But when we experience day and night as they are in their source, they're a little bit darker for us, because it's still as it remains within its source. We spoke about how an emotion or a thought, as it is within its original version, its original thought or the original feeling, is very different than how it is when it comes out into expression. But when I first have that emotion and it's inside of me, it's dark to everyone else around me. They don't know the feeling that I'm experiencing until I share it, right? So if I'm feeling very sad, and so all that the people around, and I don't express that I'm feeling sad, all that the people around me are going to be seeing me in a sort of a withdrawn kind of state. They don't know that I'm sad. Now I can express I'm feeling sad, and I'll express why. As I express it to someone else, what happens to that emotion? It loses its intensity. As soon as I'm going to express it to somebody else, it's not going to have all of its power, all of its depth as I'm experiencing it inside of me. I think we all know that this is true. Similarly with our thoughts, like we can understand an idea inside our heads, right? So let's say if I'm preparing for a class, like, okay, I understand the idea inside of me. Then I'm trying to think of all the different Mishalem explanations that I'm going to come up with to share it with other people. But in doing that, what am I doing? In a certain level, I'm taking away from the idea itself. I'm watering it down into a mashal that will make it more relatable to other people. But it's impossible to share in its unfiltered sense. So as soon as we express, we filter. So darkness is actually, when we're talking about darkness in this level, we're talking about the thing as it is its most potent, as it's being experienced. And then once it's revealed, it's sort of watered down. So concealment and revelation, as they are their most potent above, when they come down, if we receive it in its most potent state, it feels like it's concealment because we don't understand it. It's only when Hashem sort of waters it down and then shares it with us in a way that we can understand it, that it seems like revelation to us. But even though it seems like revelation, again, it's not the thing itself. It's automatically being filtered. So we're going to explore from there, okay? So we're going to start a little bit inside just because we're going to reference a few different sources, okay? So we're in Hey. We're going to understand everything that we just said. Al pi hamavur b'kama mekaymes, according to what is explained in a number of places. Hapirush b'maimer, an explanation in the saying, and this is a saying from Tikkunei Zayhar. Ein Seif l'mayla mayla ad ein kates. The Ein Seif, the infinite light, what makes it infinite is that it goes up, it goes up without any end. Ulamata mata ad ein tachlis. And it goes all the way down without any limit. So the Ein Seif, what makes it that it is an unlimited light is that it extends all the way above and all the way below. Meaning that there is no space in all of the depths of creation where God's light does not reach. And so that's a statement that it says in the Tikkunei Zayar. If you've learned Kabbalah or Hasidus, you've probably encountered this statement. Ein Seif l'mayla ad ein kates, v'lamata mata ad ein tachlis. Now he's going to explain, though, what does that mean? That it goes up without limit and down without limit. That it goes in both directions without limit. When it says it goes down, that references the spreading out and revelation of the godly light. The spreading out and the revelation of the godly light. Shahu mispashid umigala umiskala ad lamatamata. The fact that it could be revealed even in the lowest places. The fact that even down here on earth, which is, we're at the end of the creation chain, at the evolution of creation is our earth. Even down here, we could reveal godliness. And it's possibility for the Ein Seif itself to be revealed. Because if we would say that you couldn't, then would it be Ein Seif? Would it be unlimited? No. So it must be that it could be revealed even in the lowest of places. We think that, oh no, we're too low for godliness itself to be revealed. No, it can come all the way down even into our world. And so when it's saying lamata mata, it's referring to revelation of Ein Seif. And now this is very interesting. Ula maila maila, but when it refers to up above, the fact that it extends infinitely beyond, hu inyan his almos v'haliyah sheba Ein Seif. This is referring to the concealment and elevation of godly light. Shehu mis'ala u'mis'alim behelam achar helam. That it goes up and it is revealed with, and it is, concealed with concealment after concealment, ube Eloi achar Eloi, from one level to the next, lamaila maila, above. So basically what this means is, concealment means Hashem as I can't understand him. And however much I don't understand him on one level, right? However much I don't understand him, someone who is so much more in tune with godliness than me also doesn't understand him. And the angels that are spiritual creations, maybe they are privy to a different level of revelation than me, but they too don't understand him. And that helam, that hiddenness of godliness, continues infinitely. There's myriads of levels of concealment within Hashem. It's a little bit hard to grasp because we can understand how light filters. It's harder to understand how concealment sort of has levels. But I think if we're just going to think about an example of a human being, so there are people who are, you just met, that you have very casual acquaintance with, and there's so many parts of you that they don't know, and they think they know you, but they don't really know you. And then there's your closer friends, and however much they think they know you, do they really know you? Not fully. And then there's your family, and they know you, but some of our biggest, traumas is when our family doesn't really know us. It's to come from that, right? They don't really understand me, and therefore I'm being pushed to be a certain, right? I think we relate to that, not feeling really known by our families, even by our spouses, right? That there can be there's, however much you know me, there's a part of me that you don't know. And guess what? Me with myself. I think I know myself, and then I surprise myself all the time. And then for however long a person is going to live, they're going to pass away with parts of themselves that they never exposed. They never got to know. So I think in my mind, this was the closest mashal I could think of to this idea of the helam continues, as in the depths of God, which is not revealable, which is not knowable, continue endlessly. There's endless depths that you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into the unknowable. We don't access that because it's not knowable, but it expands. So when we're talking about coming down, we say God extends himself lamata mata, all the way down. That happens through revelation. Through revelation, through sharing, I can sort of filter down my revelation all the way down into every single part of this earth. And the concealment is what we talk about when we're going up. Up meaning becoming less and less and less and less and less accessible. And that too continues infinitely. And we're going to talk about what is the significance of that? What is the significance of the fact that Hashem's hiddenness also continues infinitely? And that which Hashem shears himself and he reveals himself all the way down below, that which the fact that he shears himself, the part that he shears of himself, is only a tiny, tiny little fraction of who Hashem actually is before he decides to contract, to hide a part of himself and share. Because like we said earlier, every time we're sharing, there's something that we're hiding. Every time we're sharing, there's some darkness that we're introducing. We're choosing specific words. Through choosing those specific words and not other words, we're limiting the feeling to being only with those words. We're limiting the thought to being only with those words. And so as soon as there's revelation, there's limitation. Okay. So I'm not going to read it all inside because then we'll never finish. But now we're going to go back to this idea of yaim. Okay? So, yesh leimer, you can say, shahashayresh deshnei inyanim de yaim, that the source of the two elements of yaim that we were talking about, yaim hazeh, which we said is revealed day as it comes down, as it is perceived in our created world, versus Yom Hahu, which is the source of the idea of Yom. Yom Hahu v'Yom Hazeh hu b'ha'inyan de lamata mata. The idea of Yom is connected to Hashem, the Arin Seif, as we said before, comes lamata mata ad ein that the idea of day is connected. What do we say? Going lamata means revelation. So day is a time of revelation, is sourced in this level of lamata mata. Shahagiloi b'payel, that actual revelation, la'achrei tzimtzum, that comes after the tzimtzum, hu asherish de Yom Hazeh, is the source of Yom Hazeh. The kayach hagiloi de Arin Seif, and the potential for revelation of Arin Seif, lifnei tzimtzum, hu asherish de Yom Hahu, is the source of Yom Hahu. So we said Yom Hahu is revelation as it exists above. Yom Hazeh is revelation as it exists in the world. What is the source of Yom Hazeh is the light that comes after the tzimtzum. What is the source of Yom Hahu? What is the source of the revelation as it exists above? This is a refined idea, is that even before the tzimtzum, the fact that God chose to create the tzimtzum meant that the concept of revelation existed. Right? So what exists before the tzimtzum is not revealable, but it needs to have the potential for revelation, or else you couldn't even create a tzimtzum. It needs to have, even though it's not revealable, it needs to have the potential to be revealed. Does that make sense? Yes. So the potential for revelation is how revelation exists in its source. That's the idea of Yom Hahu. We're all following? Versus as the revelation actually comes down, that's Yom Hazeh. Okay. And now we're going to talk about the source of Laila. Now we're going to talk about the source of night. V'hasheresh de Laila, and the source of night, shelamayla gam b'Yom Hahu, which we said is actually higher than Yom Hahu, hu b'ha'inyan de lamayla mayla hulu, is sourced in this concept of Hashem's hiddenness, the fact that the concealment goes deeper and deeper and deeper as well. That is the source of this of darkness. And we're going to explain something really, really profound over here, going into Vav. I'm excited about this idea. Okay? So, in Vav we say, V'hine yedua de betzimtzum shnei inyanim. When it comes to tzimtzum, there are two purposes of the tzimtzum. So what did we say tzimtzum is again? Tzimtzum is the hiddenness that enables the light to come afterwards. That's how we always explain it, right? That in order for Hashem, the world was filled with Hashem's light, and there was no space for anything else to exist. In order to create a world, Hashem had to hide his light and introduce the smaller light. But it's for the sake, what is the purpose of the tzimtzum? It's for the sake of revelation. And similarly, if we're going to talk about our tzimtzum within us, the tzimtzum within us is the let's say the actual expressions that we use in order to express ourselves. Right? We have to create sort of a limitation on the vastness of our ideas, the vastness of who we are. We create a limitation. We make a choice. I'm going to choose to express myself with these words, with this demeanor, with this, right? Like we're limiting ourselves, and that's how we express ourselves. And the expression comes as a result of the limitation. If there is no limitation, there is no expression. So the point of the limitation, we would say, is for the expression, right? So the first level that we say is that Zesha tzimtzum hu b'shvil hagiloi. The first purpose of tzimtzum is for the sake of revelation, right? We hold back in order to reveal. And now we're going to skip the parentheses over here for now. V'zeh shehabit tzimtzum atzmai, and that which within tzimtzum itself, miskala hashleimus the Arin Seif, we reveal the completion, the completeness of the Arin Seif, she'enai mugval chas v'shalom, that it is not limited, God forbid, be'inyan hagiloi, it is not limited to revelation, v'yesh legam chayach ha'helem, and it also has the power of concealment. So the second purpose of tzimtzum is tzimtzum is not there for the sake of revelation, but actually tzimtzum is there also for the sake of the darkness, to prove to us that God is infinite enough. In general, when we think about infinite, that means that it extends everywhere, and there are no boundaries, there are no limitations, there's no concealment. And we're saying, no, we're not that kind of infinite. We're actually unlimited. Not infinite, but unlimited. And something that is unlimited can also limit itself. It has no that's not unlimited. That's not the right word. Boundless. It has nothing that defines it. Therefore, Hashem can be in the revelation, and he can also be in the darkness. It's the same exact God. And the purpose of tzimtzum is to expose us to this fact. The purpose of tzimtzum is for the darkness as well, so that we can get into Hashem's darkness, so that the world was created within this darkness, so that we can access Hashem's darkness. If not for him first creating the darkness, then we would have only access to the little bit of light that we are exposed to. But he creates the world within the darkness, and now we too have access to Hashem's darkness. I think, like, if you think about a baby that's just a newborn baby, you're looking at a newborn baby, and a newborn baby is actually like very strongly in a state of like tzimtzum. It doesn't have a strong power of expression. It has very few tools at its disposal to express itself. It can cry, could give a little bit of a fake smile, right? We're trying to interpret what the baby is feeling based on its, right? But it doesn't really have many powers of expression. It's quite a unknown, mysterious, scary little entity, a newborn baby. Now within that baby, soon the baby is going to start to grow up. And so, at 1, they're going to start getting their first words, and then they're going to start to speak more and be able to communicate how they're actually feeling. And so what's going to happen? The hiddenness of what's going on inside of them is going to become a little bit more obvious to us. So there are parts of that baby that are there that will be expressed to me one day. So within that baby, there is potential expression, right? There's potential expression. All of the parts that it's going to express one day, its personality that it's going to take on. Like, it's all these cool things, who this person is going to be. But within that baby is also, like we said before, the fact that we don't even know ourselves, right? There's also parts of that child that will never, ever be expressed. There is the darkness of the child, which is not darkness as in something negative, but just unexpressible. Who we are, if I ask you, who are you? If we're going to try to, sometimes it bothers us to be, like if somebody says, oh, you're this type of person, or it's bothersome because that's not who I am. That's, once you're starting to put definitions, and that's in the world of expression. Versus who I am is not expressible. It's not definable. It's not a concept. I just am. I'm a being. And lahavdil with God is also not a concept. God is also just a being. And that beingness of Hashem, we understand the conceptual parts of Hashem because we could use our brain. We could debate, we could have philosophical debates, but then God just as he is, you're never going to understand it because it's not understandable. Not because we're stupid, not because, right? But it's not within the capacity of understanding. It's not within the world of understanding. There are parts that exist beyond the world of understanding, and therefore they are inherently dark. Because understanding is what sheds light. Versus the parts that are inherently dark. And that's when, as we referenced earlier, that's why we need to tap into our emunah for those parts. Because your yediyah is never going to get it. It's impossible. So that's when the emunah needs to be activated, because the emunah is the part of us that has faith in the unknowable. Not because it's too dumb to know it, not because it is gullible, but because it's connecting, it's the intuitive part of us that is able to connect with something that is deeper than knowledge. And so a purpose of the tzimtzum is for the darkness itself. V'yesh leimer, dezeh shebetzimtzum yeshnam shnei inyanim. And you can say, the Rebbe says, that the fact that tzimtzum has these two elements, hu ki b'kayach hahelam de'arein seif sheresh tzimtzum shtei madregas, is because in the power of helam, in the power of concealment, there are two levels. There are two levels in this power of concealment that we have been referencing. Kayach hahelam kamay sheshayach le'inyin hagiloi. There's the power of concealment that has a connection, that has a shaykhas, that has a relationship with the concept of revelation. So there's concealment that has a relationship with revelation. Shagam dar gazu b'kayach hahelam da'arein seif hu l'mayla mikayach hagiloi aval mikal makayim hu shayachas l'giloi. So what he's saying over here is it's still beyond the world of revelation, but it has some sort of connection to revelation. And the tzimtzum, which is derived from this level, is for the sake of revelation. As we mentioned before, there's two levels of tzimtzum, and there's two purposes of tzimtzum, for revelation and for the sake of the concealment itself. There is a level of tzimtzum that derives from the point in helam, in darkness, but darkness that has, like we said earlier, even mentioning in the baby, the fact that there is potential over here that one day I'll get to know who it is. It has a relationship to being knowable. As opposed to the second level, the etzem kayach hahelam, but the essential power of concealment, the hatzimtzum shenimshach midar gazu hu lai b'shvil hagiloi ela zeh shebehatzimtzum atzmai mispgala kayach ha'etzem. So the essential power of concealment has no relationship to the level of giloi, like we said before. You're never going to know it because it's not knowable. It has no connection to the power of revelation. And from that level of helam is where we derive the tzimtzum that is just for the sake of the darkness, of being exposed to the darkness. And according to this, we're now going to understand the idea of, sorry, I'm just checking the time. We're going to have to continue. I wanted to do it inside, but we're not going to finish. Okay, so according to this, we're going to understand the two levels of night that we said before. If you remember, we said that there is a night when there is darkness. There are times when the Jewish people are in galus, when we feel the galus very strongly. We're hyper aware of the fact that we're in galus. We feel pain. We feel distance from God. We recognize that we're in a state of darkness. This level of darkness, that's called Laila Hazeh. Why is it Laila Hazeh? Because I can point and say, this is night. It's a revealed darkness. And where does this level stem from? This stems from the level of tzimtzum for the sake of light, right? I know I am in darkness. I know there's a light that's going to come after the darkness, and I'm aiming to get to the light. But then there's the type of galus, there's a type of darkness where we don't even realize that we are in a state of darkness. And that derives from the level of kayach hahelam itself, the darkness itself. It's so dark that it's so concealed that I don't even recognize that it's concealed because there's no revelation of the concealment. There's no revelation of the concealment. It's just pure concealment. And so I have no sense of the darkness. I don't even realize that I'm in a state of darkness. And there's a difference in our Avodah during these two times. And I think in the galus that we are currently in now, I think we fluctuate between these two states. Sometimes we feel like, okay, this galus is so bad, I want it to be over already, and I'm looking for the light. And sometimes we don't even recognize how life is just so comfortable for us, and how do I really want change, the world to change? That's very scary. So I don't even recognize the darkness that I'm in. And so the Avodah is going to change when I'm in these two different states. When you're in the first state, the state where we recognize the darkness, our avodah is literally to just yearn for the darkness to be over. To know, to recognize the darkness, to say, I'm waiting for the light, and obviously our actions that match up with the yearning, and I do what I need to do to get out of the darkness as much as I can. But when we're in that second state, and I think this is also individual, sometimes people are, there could be different people in this room that are in different states of personal darkness themselves, right? Some people who are yearning for the light, and some people who are like, okay, I'm very comfortable, I'm happy where I am, I'm happy with my life. Then what the avodah is to actually contemplate on how high the source of this darkness is. To recognize that in this darkness, I am finding Hashem himself. It's a very difficult thing to think about, but like to think about how right now we are in Hashem's hiddenness. I'm in Hashem's hiddenness. And what that allows us to access is the powers of my own hiddenness. What is the power of my own hiddenness? That is the power of Mesiras Nefesh. The power of Mesiras Nefesh is, so when I'm in a state, and this is why, if you've learned the Maimarim on Purim, this is a theme that the Rebbe speaks about, how when we're being crushed and we're being persecuted, we don't have to go so deep to stay committed to our Judaism, because we recognize it triggers it within us that I feel like my identity is being trampled, and it's much easier to sort of access that light. I don't have to go so deep. But when we're not being crushed, when we're happy, when we don't recognize the darkness, then when you connect, it means you're accessing a very, very, very deep point within yourself. You're connecting from your inner darkness to Hashem's inner darkness, which is a place that we can't access without being in this state of darkness. Unless we're in this state of darkness, we are never forced to go that deep. So we're going to get back to the Mesiras Nefesh in a minute. So when we say that Hashem woke up on the darkest night, B'layla hahu, we're saying that the Jewish people accessed Mesiras Nefesh. And in turn, what did that do? Hashem came and he sort of he brought the darkness itself into a state of revelation. And this is a little bit difficult, so we're going to, let's go through this methodically. The hidden part and the hidden part, the Helam and the Giloi, almost exist on two different planes. Because, like we said before, the Helam is it's not that it's a part of me that I don't know yet. It's a part of me, or a part of Hashem, that is unknowable, versus the parts that are knowable. So they're sort of existing on two different planes. And this is why the king can wake up, but we could still be in a state of galus. We could still be in a state where we're not lacking, where we're lacking revelation. Because just because we're triggering one part of godliness doesn't mean that we're triggering the other. And this could be reflected even in ourselves. Very famously in Parak Yud Ches of Tanya, and from there on, the Alter Rebbe discusses how a Jew, even a big Rasha, a person who is very disconnected from God, can have Mesiras Nefesh. In the scenario where he recognizes that his identity is going to be fully cut off from God. So if he's told, let's say, convert or die, even a Jew who maybe is not religious won't want to convert, might not want to convert. Why shouldn't he convert if he's not a practicing Jew? Like, what does he care to convert? It's because to convert would mean that I'm saying I'm cutting off my identity entirely, my entire identity from my Jewishness. And that triggers that hidden part inside of me. It's totally not revealed. In a revealed state, the person is not keeping Torah mitzvahs at all. The revealed self is not in tune at all with Torah mitzvahs, but their hidden self doesn't allow them, their deepest essential identity doesn't allow them to disconnect from God. So they could be Moser Nefesh, allow themselves to die rather than to convert to another religion. Thankfully, this is not something we're usually posed with on a daily basis, but it's this idea that our Mesiras Nefesh track and our conscious track and our revealed track are sort of running on two separate lines. And similarly, like we said before with Hashem, that the revealed Hashem and the concealed, the darkness of Hashem, are also sort of running on two separate lines. What happened when we had this Mesiras Nefesh? What's the danger of operating from the Mesiras Nefesh space? Is that being that my conscious self is not involved and only my subconscious self is involved after the scenario is over. So if it's not a case of convert or die, but some other, because if you're dead, it's no longer relevant. But in a case where, your essential self is triggered momentarily and you make a choice from that essential place, but then when you go back to your regular life, it's not going to really have an impact because your regular self, your conscious, normal operating self, hasn't really been triggered in this instance. It hasn't been impacted. Only the deepest self has been impacted. So what is the goal? The goal is to unite the two selves, to unite the darkness and the light. So that doesn't mean that the darkness becomes revealed, because like we said before, the darkness is not revealable. It's that I access a place that's higher than the darkness and higher than the light, and because of that, I'm able to marry the two together. Because is Hashem only in his darkness? The same way we said Hashem is not only in his light, we also can't say that Hashem is only in his darkness. So there must be a power, and this is what we call the power of Atzmos, the power of God himself, beyond anything else, just Hashem. That when that comes into the picture, these two can actually coexist together. The essentials, the dark self, and the revealed self, the shadow self, if you want to call it in modern language maybe, but maybe it's even a little bit deeper than that, can coexist with the revealed self, and not through the power of revelation, but through the power of essence. Through, there's two ways you can resolve a fight. There's two kids that are fighting, and so you could, one kid can just overwhelm the other, punch the other kid down, okay, he won. Or maybe they could, make peace. Or maybe all of a sudden the two kids are fighting in the playground and the principal walks by. And what happens to the fight? It just sort of stops. I don't know if this is the best example for this. But basically the point is that when we introduce the power of etzem, no, it was not a good example. Forget what I just said. Forget it. No, but the idea is that, let's think. This is a better example. Let's say there's a parent and child that have very, 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 very strong differences about something. Something that, the parent almost says to the child, if you want to be in my home, it contradicts to what this home is about or who I am. You cannot do this thing in front of me. I don't, it's an irreconcilable difference between the two. So let's say there is a parent and child that have an irreconcilable difference. In many other relationships, if two people have an irreconcilable, I'm going to stop saying that, difference, then what happens to the relationship? It cannot exist because we can't reconcile it. But in the parent-child relationship, being that there is an essential bond over here, it cannot really be destroyed. You will always be my parent. I will always be your child. The DNA will always speak the truth. So now, I'm not saying this always happens in practice, but in theory, the relationship still exists, despite the fact that we have these two completely opposite factors between us. The relationship still exists because we bring in that it's an essential bond. Nothing can change it. So the essential bond allows for two opposites to exist at the same time. And so that is the better mashal to bring us back to our situation over here, is that when the essence is revealed, the opposites can coexist and they can merge together. And we can live in a world of both the revelation and the darkness. That's what Purim is about. Purim is about the fact that we are able to access this power of darkness. We're able to access the depth of the darkness. We're able to grasp the actual truth, not the revealed truth, but like the truth as it is in its darkest state. And we're able to live with it. Not just like have it for a moment or know it exists, but we're actually able to like impact our lives in a positive way as a result of that, because it's Laila Hahu, but Nadadash Nasamela. It's the darkest night, but the king is awake. So the king is awake, that means when we're awake, we said being awake is revelation. So really, B'Layla he should be sleeping. It's impossible to wake up. It should be dark. But no, he wakes up anyway because of this power of Mesiras Nefesh that we access. So I think the Avaida going into Purim is to, first of all, think about what the darkness is. Think about how the lack of revelation is not God cutting us off. It's him allowing us to access the depths of him through accessing the depths of ourselves, the deepest parts of ourselves that we would not be able to access if it was a state of revelation. And also to know that because, and this is a whole other discussion that we're not going to get into now because we don't have time, but all the ideas of Purim is that because we're going into a Mashiach state on Purim, it says that when Purim is not going to exist, is going to be the only Yantif that exists when Mashiach comes, because it is similar to Mashiach. But what is Mashiach? Mashiach is the existence of these two opposites, because it's existing in this essential state where the unknowable will be revealed, whatever that means. So Purim is a taste of that, a taste of being able to tap into the unknowable and have it be in whatever way it is, in a state of some sort of revelation. And I think we'll stop here because it is 1:30. So what that means practically, I think, is kind of, it's not necessarily like you could point out to something obvious, but I think even just like looking at the nature of the day, where it's not a day of, there's just like so much craziness going on, but like finding a sense of presence, even just like the fact that like, we're supposed to be giving a lot of tzedakah. There's so much going on. You're supposed to give tzedakah. It's like forcing you to go into to live on so many different planes at one time. You're supposed to daven. You're supposed to be giving out things to so many, like it's through all the craziness, we're living on all the opposite sides of ourselves. And we're uniting all the opposite sides of ourselves. So I think that's one way. It's like embracing the fact of the chaos is almost part of embracing the chaos is part of living in this opposite state of reality. That's just one way. If anyone has other ideas, feel free to share. Thank you.